Hey, Vickers.
Hey, Vickers. I was wondering. Are you a robot?
From the WEYLAND YUTANI Report. Meredith Vickers, EC 95498743008, 2057 to 2093. Sir Peter WEYLAND's only legitimate child. Studied business management at Oxford. Chose to accompany Sir Peter to oversee operations aboard the Prometheus. Miss Vickers was in line to become CEO of WEYLAND YUTANI upon the death or resignation of her father. She was personally responsible for selecting the Prometheus's crew. Meredith Vickers, portrayed by Charlize Theron, emerged from Prometheus as one of the film's most enigmatic characters. This is a character who holds her secrets close, and perhaps the biggest secret of all is one she's not even aware of. Could Vickers have been an android? This has been a topic of debate ever since the release of the film. She is, after all, a company figure, never fully to be trusted, and very clearly alienated from the rest of the Prometheus crew throughout. She is cold and restrained, with motives that may not be what they appear to be. When she is outright asked by Captain Yannick if she is in fact a robot, her reaction isn't exactly what you may expect. And of course, she is the daughter of Peter WEYLAND, but is she a daughter by blood, or like David, another of his artificial creations? Right from the moment we meet the character, there are suspicions. When she awakes from her hypersleep, her actions are reminiscent of Ash, the android character from the first Alien film. She begins doing push-ups. This brings to mind comments made by Ridley Scott on the 1999 commentary track for Alien. The first sign here that Ian isn't necessarily what you think he is. Is he arthritic, or is it something else? Or have years in space got to his joints? On Scott's commentary track for Prometheus, he keeps the idea of Vickers being an android in play, but never fully reveals his own beliefs. He is, however, very interested in the dynamic between Vickers and David, as the sort of quarreling WEYLAND siblings, and makes note of their physical similarities. I like the fact that they're both blonde, he notes. So you begin to think, are these kind of clones brother and sister? Do you ever think about that? Do you ever think that you might be a robot? That's part of the intention, I think. Why don't we suggest that she might be a robot? Laying the foundation for such speculation had certainly been accomplished, but no definitive answer had ever been reached. No commentaries or interviews 100% confirmed or denied it, and no supplemental resources such as the WEYLAND YUTANI report would ever seem to go as far as to indulge the android theory further. In 2017, however, right before the release of Alien Covenant, the speculation had been ignited once more. As part of the new film's promotion, the official website launched a Mother 6000 AI, essentially a chatbot with a focus on alien-related inquiries. One user's inquiry spread like wildfire and led many to believe we finally had an answer to the Vickers mystery. The inquiry: when did Meredith Vickers die? The answer: June 29th, 2049. Considering the fact that the Prometheus mission, and Vickers' supposed death, took place in 2093, this answer obviously raises some questions. Did the real Meredith Vickers in fact die in 2049, and was the Vickers accompanying Project Prometheus actually an android replacement? If this is the case, then why? Scenarios may come to mind as to Peter WEYLAND's motivations for this. Perhaps Meredith, or Mary as he called her, actually died tragically in 2049. Unable to cope with this loss, Sir Peter created an android in her image, as well as her personality. In this case, he would have programmed her with all of her personality traits, good and bad, and would have created her without the knowledge that she is, in fact, not human. She would not be made to serve, she would not follow the standard rules of robotics, she does after all kill Holloway to prevent a quarantine breach, and she would fully believe in her own humanity. WEYLAND himself would have to be committed to the lie as well, even to the point of complete delusion. There would, however, be an underlying resentment for Mary, knowing at least deep down she would never really be a true human, and instead showing a preference for David, who is unquestionably a robot, a more advanced model, and one that would not defy him in any way like Mary would be known to do. It is an interesting angle to the Vickers character and the WEYLAND family dynamic, but it doesn't necessarily add up perfectly. We have a date of death, according to the Mother 6000 chatbot, but no date of birth to reference. If we were to go by her date of birth as stated in the WEYLAND-YUTANI report, she would have died before she was even born, as the birth year in the report is 2057. For this concept to even work, we'd have to commit to the belief that these records were somehow falsified, her death was kept a secret from everyone but Sir Peter and a certain number of developers responsible for the android's creation, and that essentially a robot would be next in line to take over Weyland Industries. I think that the more likely explanation is that the information provided by this chatbot was simply inaccurate. There's no way to go back to it now. This was a limited promotional feature back in 2017, so we can't get further information on what the Mother 6000 knows or doesn't know about Vickers. It doesn't mean the theory of Vickers being an android is completely dismissible, but it's not quite the holy grail of tidbits that some have made it out to be. While the intention to have it somewhat ambiguous has always been there, maybe it's more worthwhile to look for evidence of Vickers being human rather than her not being one. There are definitely moments and traits that can be found throughout the movie and elsewhere that suggest her humanity. While she is a cold and distant character, this could all be a very human and very common defense mechanism. Take, for example, a deleted scene where Vickers holds up in her quarters after having killed Holloway. She's visited by Captain Yannick, who shows her empathy for her decision and her actions, sharing a personal anecdote about his own dealings with the harsh nature of enforcing quarantine. She asks him why he told her this story, and he explains that she looks to be in pain. Her response, "I burned my hand." Either she truly is just completely unaffected by killing Holloway, or she's putting up a facade. Vickers is a character with strong emotions, but she makes an equally strong effort not to show them. Also worth considering is an extended scene between her and her father, where we get a further sense of their relationship and further emotions that she expresses.
I am sorry. I want to say goodbye.
Very negative way of looking at things.
Maybe you should look at the thing squealing next door and tell me how positive you feel.
You know, Mary, I've always despised that sarcastic attitude of yours.
A king has his reign, and then he dies. That is a natural order of things. Look at you. You used to have so much grace. I respected you. Look up to you. You're nothing but a scared old man. And I'm tired of waiting for that last pitiful breath to leave your godforsaken mouth.
From the WEYLAND-YUTANI report. Transmission from Meredith Vickers to private recipient via Comnet, 12/26/93. Dr. Holloway is dead. He was infected by some alien virus or bacterium, and he tried to come back aboard the Prometheus. There was no alternative. I told him to stand down, but he kept coming at me, forcing my hand. He begged me to kill him, and he was trying to break quarantine. There was nothing else I could do. No one supported my decision, but that's why I'm here, isn't it? To make the hard decisions. After a lifetime beyond brilliance, Sir Peter Weyland let the fear of his own mortality take over, to lead him on this fool's errand, and someone had to step up to manage his madness. I deserve better. I've earned better, but no one else was volunteering for the job. Weyland thinks he's found the cure for death. He's off to meet our makers now, convinced that he hasn't wasted his last days of life reaching for the impossible. No man is immortal, not even him, but he refuses to surrender. His claws are so deeply entrenched. I used to think it was me, that he didn't believe in my abilities. The simpler truth is that he won't let go because he can't. He can't comprehend that his magical, special life is finally nearing its end, that he will cease to exist like the rest of us. Did the engineers create us? Shaw and Holloway proved a connection, certainly, which I would have bet against. The real question is, though, does it matter? My father created me. If I was dying, I wouldn't crawl to him, begging for more life, like he's crawling now. Weyland is no longer fit to lead the company, and when he returns from his pointless journey to the engineer's ship, I will relieve him of his duties. No matter what he finds, it won't be what he wants. It never is. Further glimpses into her emotion and her complex relationship with her father are found within this transmission. It's clear she resents him, but from the deleted footage it's apparent this wasn't always the case. At one point she did look up to him and respect him, but his achievements warped him in some way. He wasn't content to lead a natural life and leave his legacy behind. Meredith was not a good enough legacy. In time, it would seem he came to prefer his artificial creation David, the closest thing to his son, as he put it, to his own flesh and blood daughter. The resentment for her father and her would-be brother continued to grow. It was her hope that this expedition to find a miracle on some godforsaken rock in the middle of space would be his last, and she would finally be able to carry on the legacy as she saw fit. While Ridley Scott has been cheeky about whether or not she's a robot, and even the cuts made from the film seem to reflect a desire to tone down some more emotional aspects, in keeping with that ambiguity, support is definitely there in the final film to reach a conclusion that she's human. We see some subtle hints, such as the scowl on her face when Weyland pridefully boasts about David. We see her anger in plenty of scenes, and of course, when things are not looking so good for her survival, we do see pure, unadulterated fear, and a clear, desperate attempt to preserve her own life. That all seems very human to me. The Prometheus home video release also comes with commentary by its writers, Jonathan Spathis and Damon Lindeloff. While also cautiously ambiguous on this subject, Damon Lindeloff shares some insights on his track as to the truth behind the Vickers character. Here's what he had to say. One of the things that I love about Charlize is when we first started talking to her about doing the movie, and obviously we're talking about someone who's won an Oscar for a lead performance and doesn't take supporting roles often, there needed to be a lot more to Vickers. And so those conversations with Charlize were really the beginnings of her relationship with Weyland. And she just openly sort of said, I want to be an asshole, but I want to understand at the end of the movie why she's an asshole. And the answer to that question was because her dad has really mistreated her throughout her entire life. She's had to form a very thick skin, and she's coming on this mission to basically see him through his folly and take what belongs to her. But then there's this one scene with Yannick, where we sort of get the sense that he sort of sees through it. On a pure character level, really important to understand that there's a little bit more to this woman than meets the eye. And then Yannick asks this great question. I just love the way that Idris Elba performed this. Which is, he asks her if she's a robot. I think that in all the Alien movies, much is made of the idea of whether or not the humans are told that there is a robot amongst them. In Alien, they do not know that Ash is a robot. In Aliens, Ripley learns very early on that Bishop is a robot, and is not happy about it. David, we never meant to disguise his robotness, his lack of humanity. Everyone is aware. But I was like, wouldn't people on the ship wonder if David was the only robot? And clearly, since David has an attachment to Weyland Corp, and Weyland goes on and on about making robots, and Vickers kind of looks like David, wouldn't somebody ask her if she was a robot at some point? Funnily enough, while Lindeloff makes mention of Alien and Aliens, he actually doesn't mention Alien 3. There we had another instance of a company representative who may or may not have been a robot, in this case, Bishop 2. That has always been a subject of debate, though if we look once more to the Weyland-Yutani report, which is an official resource and can be considered accurate and truthful in its information, if you consider it an authority, then it does have a definitive answer on Bishop 2. He's a human. Vickers, however, could still be up for debate. I'm of the belief that Vickers is actually a human. I think more of her actions and behaviors are aligned with that of a human. I think the idea of her being a replacement for Weyland's real dead daughter and being designed to believe she's human without knowing the truth is interesting, but hard to support. Her reaction to Yannick's inquiry and going straight to bed with him doesn't seem like a reaction to being caught or blackmailed, but more of a reaction based on any number of complexes she may have developed over her life. The disdain she has for David feels justified enough. It's not so much a sibling rivalry or competition in her view, but it's unbelievable and enraging to her that Weyland has positioned it that way. I think she's a tragic character, and I think it's more interesting to view her as human. I think this story going on, somewhat riffing on Shakespearean ideas of a king with no suitable heirs looking to magic and the otherworldly to unnaturally extend his reign, is a compelling concept. And the dynamic of these three characters is compelling. They each have these sort of envies of one another. Weyland desires David's long life, Vickers desires Weyland's power, and David maybe desires to desire, if an android is even capable of that. In Vickers' case, maybe that is so, but in the world of Alien, I believe one should be considered human until proven robot. But I'd love to hear what you think. I know this has been long debated for just about a decade now. 2022 marks the 10th anniversary of Prometheus, and everyone has an opinion. So, share your case. Was Meredith Vickers an android? please leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and be sure to subscribe for all the latest videos from Alien Theory. A very special thanks goes out to Alyssane, Grizz4756, Ronni Jensen, and XenoShadowMorph, Queen Tiers of the Patreon Hive. Thank you to Gregory Ford and John Griggs, the Hive's Praetorians, and a very special thanks goes out to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence. And in the role of WEYLAND YUTANI executives, NanashiFx and Sergei Kolobashkin. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @AlienTheoryYT on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.